Hello, my name is Wanda. I am 34 years old and I am from Colorado. So here's the thing, I always believed James and I had a very good relationship. He's 36 calm back and doesn't worry about anything, which is a wonderful balance for me because I can be a little intense. That night, we attended one of his friend Mike's parties. James does not have many friends, so when he expresses a desire to socialize, I make an attempt. I imagined we'd go have some drinks and then depart after a few hours. It started off normally. The house was filled, and everyone seemed to know one other, which was understandable, given that James had been acquainted with the majority of these folks for years. I did not know everyone, but it never bothered me. I'm really excellent at blending in, and I actually enjoy being the center of attention when I'm in the mood for it. So as James caught up with Mike, I socialized a little. A few hours later, a few of us ended up in this circle, chatting and joking about random topics. Someone mentioned partnerships at some time. For example, how much do you trust your partner to have your back if things go wrong? It was all hypothetical, of course, but the question made me smile. I looked at James, who was sitting next to me, calm as usual, and murmured something like, "Oh, I know James won't be able to protect me." Look at him. It caused laughter. A big one, and I got that tiny thrill you get when you realize you said something hilarious. So I continued going. I taunted him about how he doesn't work out how he can hardly open jars at times, and joked that if someone tried to mug us, he'd just freeze up. People died laughing. Mike even made a joke about James skipping leg day, as if it had led to this whole situation. However, James said nothing. He just sat there with an odd half smile, as if he didn't want to make things awkward, but I could tell he was not laughing. So instead of stopping, I doubled down. I pointed to his arms and remarked something like, "Seriously, he has arms like a sixth grader. No offense, babe. People have lost it again." I mean, wasn't it funny? And nothing I said was false. But then out of nowhere, James got up. Just like that. He stood up, got his jacket, and left the room. There's no explanation. At first, I assumed he was just going to the restroom or needed some fresh air. But when he didn't return after a few minutes, I realized he had left. Like gone. The attitude in the room changed immediately. Everyone stopped laughing, and there was an awkward pause. Mike stared at me like, "Are you okay?" That was really severe. This threw me off because I assumed it was simply a joke. A joke? We've taunted each other before. It's not like I violated an unsaid rule or something. Nonetheless, I attempted to play it off. I shrugged and added, "He's probably tired or something. He's okay." But internally, I was annoyed. So, what was his problem? It wasn't like I was lying and no one there would think less of him. If anything, I felt it would make him seem better. For his ability to laugh at himself. I stayed at the party for a bit longer, but it wasn't the same. People were courteous, but the atmosphere was odd, and I felt a strange combination of resentment and humiliation. I finally said my goodbyes and called an Uber. When I arrived home, James was in bed pretending to be asleep. I did not say anything to him. I expected he'd be over it by morning, but the next day things changed. He scarcely spoke with me. When he did, it was brief and clipped like if he didn't care. When I asked him what his deal was, he simply looked at me and stated, "You humiliated me in front of my friends." That took me by surprise, since again I didn't believe it was that severe. I assured him that it was a joke, James. Don't be too sensitive. He did not respond. Instead, he simply walked out of the room, and I realized he was not going to let this go. When I awoke the next morning, James was already up and seated at the kitchen table drinking his coffee. He didn't glance up when I went in, which upset me immediately. Okay, he was upset last night, but the quiet treatment wasn't going to work for me. "Morning," I murmured as I poured myself a cup of coffee. No response. He kept swiping through his phone as if I wasn't even there. "Okay, are we really doing this?" I asked, sitting across from him. "Because if we are, let's get this over with." He put down his phone and finally glanced at me. "Why would you think it was acceptable to embarrass me like that in front of my friends?" His voice was not loud, but it was keen. "Oh my God, James, are you still with this?" It was a joke, I explained, rolling my eyes. "I was not attempting to disgrace you." He snapped. "That is exactly what you did. You made me feel foolish in front of everyone. You don't believe I know I'm not the world's strongest guy? You didn't need to display it that way. I sat back in my chair and crossed my arms. Okay, but James, you left me there alone. You're upset at a joke, yet you thought it was okay to walk out and leave your wife at a friend's house. How is that okay? I needed to get out of there, he remarked, shaking his head. Do you know how disrespectful you were, Wanda? You do not talk about your spouse like that, particularly not in front of other people. It was as if you were attempting to shame me. I gave a quick laugh, more out of annoyance than anything else. James, you are teasing. Everybody was laughing. It isn't like I stepped up and delivered a speech about how you are a failure. To be honest, going away like that didn't exactly prove me incorrect. You left me there to take an Uber home like some random person. What type of man would do that? His face grew hot, and I noticed him clenching his jaw. You don't understand, do you? He spoke louder now. You do not respect me. If you had, you would not have uttered half of what you did last night. You would not have kept going if you had seen how uncomfortable I was. I put up my hands. I respect you, James, but you didn't act very decent last night, did you? A grown guy does not walk off and abandon his wife simply because he is upset about a joke. You could have pulled me away and said something. Instead, you bailed. And now you want to lecture me on respect. He stared at me for a long time, and I could see he was processing what I had said. Finally, he exhaled and ran his fingers through his hair. You're right, he mumbled. I should not have left you there. That was not okay. I arched an eyebrow, shocked he would confess it. That's what I thought, I responded, leaning forward. So maybe next time don't overreact and make everything worse. If you had just spoken to me, we wouldn't be having this conversation. He didn't say anything for a second and simply glanced down at his coffee. I just wish you'd think about how your words affect me, he added quietly. I am not asking you to change who you are. Just think about it. I shrugged, not wanting to press it any further now that he had apologized. Okay, I'll think about it. But you also need to consider how you handle situations. Deal? He nodded, but he still seemed annoyed. I knew this wasn't over for him, but what about me? As far as I was concerned, the issue was resolved. After our chat, I felt quite good. James apologized, which meant I had won the dispute, and that was the end of it. Sure, he appeared a little weird, but he'd get over it. He always did. That is how our connection worked. He'd get irritated about anything I'd stand my ground, and he'd finally come around. I didn't need to think about it anymore. James wasn't exactly the commanding kind. I was always the one who kept things moving in our relationship, whether it was planning plans, managing funds, or picking what to watch on television. He did not mind. In fact, I believe he liked it that way. It's not like he ever fought me on it, so when I say I was in control, I'm not kidding. That was exactly how we were, and it worked. So that worked for me. A few evenings later, James informed me that he was going out for supper with some pals. Mike and the men, he explained, as if that was all I needed to know. I raised an eyebrow, but did not confront him. I could guess what this was about. One of those guys' nights where they all get together and talk about their feelings over beers and burgers, most likely about how terrible I am and how James deserves better. I was not foolish. I had noticed how they stared at me after the party. Honestly, I wasn't surprised. Guys like Mike and his friends usually pretend to be above drama, but they're just as awful as women when it comes to gossiping. Still, I did not say anything. If James needs to rant, let him do so. He'd come home and everything would return to normal. However, when he returned that night, something had changed. It was nothing dramatic. He didn't rush in with accusations or anything like that. It was more subtle. He seemed quieter than usual, as if he were immersed in thought. When I asked how supper was, he simply shrugged and answered, "It was fine." "Is everything fine?" I teased, hoping to lighten the mood. What did Mike overcook the steak? Or what? He gave me a faint, almost forced smile and replied, "No, the food was good." I had a lot on my mind. That was strange for James. Normally, he'd tell me everything they talked about, including who said what and whose joke drew the most laughs. But not this time. This time, he just brushed it off and went to bed early, leaving me to wonder what was going on. Over the next few days, I began to notice further changes. At start, everything was small. He didn't appear as willing to follow my plans. When I proposed we watch a movie, he answered, "You pick and I'll watch whatever." In this tone, he seemed more offended than indifferent. Or when I announced our weekend plans, he casually said that he might go hiking with Mike instead, which he didn't usually do. James was not a huge fan of outdoor activities. It wasn't simply his behavior, though. It was his attitude. He seemed to, perhaps more confident, I'm not sure how else to characterize it. Like he didn't wait for my permission before doing something. I was not used to it, and I disliked it. Not because I want to control him. All right, maybe a bit. But it seemed like he was slipping away from me. I felt as if he was shutting me out for no apparent reason. One night I finally mentioned it. While we were getting ready for bed, I mentioned how you've been acting differently lately. What's happening? He glanced at me and I thought he was going to deny it. But then he explained, I've just been thinking a lot about us. About me, about what I want. This threw me off. What do you want? I repeated, attempting to keep my voice calm. What is that intended to mean? He shrugged. Just that I've been putting things off for too long. I too have been too passive. Whatever. I just need to start standing up for myself more. I laughed, attempting to play it off, but inwardly, I felt a strange sense of discomfort. You make it seem like I've been operating a dictatorship or something. Is it about the party? We already talked about it. He looked me directly in the eyes and said, It's not just the party. It is everything. And with that, the conversation switched. It was no longer about one night or a single joke. It was about our entire relationship. And for the first time, I understood he might be unhappy with the way things were. For the first time, I questioned whether I was losing control. When James arrived home from work one evening, I could tell he was thinking about something. He had that serious expression he gets when he's about to speak something he'd been practicing in his thoughts for hours. I didn't ask what it was, however. If it was essential, he would tell me, or at least that was how it generally worked. We ate dinner mostly in silence. And then while I was clearing the plates, he spoke up. We must talk. I sighed, already agitated. So what now? He didn't react to my tone, which was odd. Instead, he sat back in his chair and crossed his arms. Why are you treating me the way you do? This caught me off surprise. What exactly are you talking about? I mean the way you talk to me as if you are the only one who matters in this relationship. Do you even respect me? Wanda, honestly? I rolled my eyes. I respect you, James. You are my hubby. Why are you asking me that? He shook his head with frustration. Because you don't behave like it. You humiliated me in front of my friends, and when I tried to express my feelings, you focused on how I overreacted. You do not listen to me. You do not care what I desire. And half of the time I feel like I'm just here to be your punching bag. That isn't fair, I shot back. I was not attempting to disgrace you. I told you it was a joke. You are the one who has made it into this gigantic thing. Wanda, he murmured, his tone sharper now. It's not just about the celebration. It is about everything. The way you speak to me. The way you dismiss me when I try to express my feelings. If you truly appreciated me, you would not treat me this way. I felt my face warm up. James, don't act like you're a flawless angel in all of this. You do not stand up for yourself. You let me handle everything, and now you want to sit here and say I'm the evil guy. Perhaps if you stepped up more, I wouldn't have to take over all the time. That is not an answer, he remarked, cutting me off. Why did you marry me if you do not respect me? Was it convenience because I was the safe option? Was there anything else? Because I'm starting to think I'm not the person you wanted to marry. I froze as the words hit me like a slap. That's ludicrous, I replied quickly. You're turning this into something it isn't. Am I? He questioned, his voice rising. Wanda, the way you treat me does not feel like love. It feels as if I'm just here. I feel like I'm not enough for you. And perhaps I never was. That is not correct, I snapped. But even as I said it, I could feel holes appearing in my defense. You're overthinking it. Are you letting your buddies get into your head? They have been flooding you with this garbage. And now you're attempting to blame me for things that don't even exist. My friends did not make me feel this way. he stated firmly. You did. They just pushed me to say something. And I am pleased they did. We can't keep going like this, Wanda. This is not healthy. It is not fair to any of us. I folded my arms and leaned back in my chair. Okay, so what's the solution? Counseling divorce. Are you gonna give up because I made a few jokes you didn't like? This is not about the jokes, he explained. This is about respect, about whether you even want to be with me, because right now it appears that you don't. I scoffed. That is absurd. You are exaggerating this situation. No, he replied, his voice steady. I am asking for the truth. Is there anyone else? Is it just that I was never the guy you really wanted? The question impacted me like a blow in the belly, and I couldn't say anything for a second. My first inclination was to deny it and lash out, but something in his tone deterred me. He was not angry. He was not accusing. He was only done. I rose up and pushed my chair back with more force than intended. You know what, James? Maybe your pals were correct. Perhaps this is a lost cause. You want to sit here and play the victim as if you were the perfect husband, but you have not been. And maybe I'm not the evil guy here. Maybe we aren't meant to be. He said nothing, just gazed at me with a calm, even resigned expression. And for the first time, I realized he wasn't out to win the argument. He was attempting to determine whether there was anything left to fight for. What would you like to do? He inquired gently. Because I can't keep doing it, Wanda. We either repair it or walk away. I did not have an answer. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure what to say. James and I sat in quiet for what seemed like an eternity after his query. Fix it or move away. I wasn't used to being put on the position like that. Normally, he would back down, let me to deflect, and everything would return to normal. But not this time. He was dead serious, and the significance of his words hung in the air between us. Finally, I sighed and tried to sound composed. Okay, if you want to repair it, let's try counseling. His eyebrows lifted slightly, and I could see he didn't expect me to agree so quickly. Really? Yes, I replied, leaning forward and clasping my hands together as if I were earnest. I do not want to abandon this marriage. If you believe that counseling will be beneficial, let's go ahead with it. It was not a complete untruth. I did not desire a divorce. I enjoyed my life, and James was a part of it. But what's the truth? I assumed the whole thing was simply a phase. He was feeling himself after his buddy's pep talk, but he'd soon return to reality. How do I schedule counseling? Sure. Are you really going through with it? That was another story. I promised him I'd find a counselor and set something up. But weeks passed, and I never did. Every time he mentioned it, I had an excuse. Oh, I've been so busy at work. Or the ones I discovered were all booked up. Or I am waiting for a call back. He seemed to believe me at first, but then the questioning stopped. I assumed he'd moved on as I had expected. Then, one night he said it again. We were sitting on the couch watching TV when he turned to me and asked, You never scheduled counseling, did you? I froze for a second before soon recovering. I've told you. I have been trying. It isn't as simple as it seems, James. Don't lie to me, he stated calmly but firmly. You never intended to do it, did you? I rolled my eyes and quickly became defensive. Oh, come on, James. Don't act as if I don't care about our marriage. I promised I would do it, and I will. No, he replied, cutting me off. You won't and don't care. That's not enough. If you had, we wouldn't be here right now. Here we go again, I grumbled, crossing my arms. Why are you continuously making me the bad guy? Because you won't admit anything, he snapped, his voice rising. You do not respect me, Wanda. You aren't even taking this seriously. And to be honest, I'm done pretending that this is going to work. I want a divorce. I looked at him shocked. What have you just said? I said I wanted a divorce. He said, his tone firm. This is not healthy. You do not respect me, and I cannot stay with someone who refuses to try to solve things. I chuckled, but mostly out of incredulity. You aren't serious. I am, he answered, looking me dead in the eye. I've been serious for a while. I just wanted to make sure this wasn't fixable, and it isn't. You're being ridiculous, I remarked, shaking my head. You're just mad right now. You will calm down and realize how dumb this is. No, Wanda, he replied firmly. I'm not mad, I am clear. I deserve better than this. That's when it struck me. He wasn't lying. He wasn't trying to prove a point or win an argument. He intended it. He wanted out. I panicked. Are you kidding me? I snapped, getting up and staring at him. Do you desire a divorce after all I've done for you? After all the years I've put up with your weakness and passiveness? Stop, he demanded, but I ignored him. No, you're going to hear it, I responded, my voice rising. You are pathetic, James. You have always been pathetic. You've let me walk all over you for years, and now you think you're a big man because your tiny friends urged you to get a backbone. You are a joke. Wanda. No, I cried, tears spilling down my cheeks. I wish I had never married you. You are an embarrassment, a fragile, weak excuse for a man. You can't take a simple joke without running to your friends like a toddler. And now you believe you are better than me. By the end, I was shivering, my chest overflowing with emotion. But while the words lingered in the air, I recognized something. There was nobody else to blame. Not James, not his pals. No one. It's just me. He stared at me for a long time, his face unreadable. Then he stood up and proceeded towards the door. You do not need to say anything else, he said calmly. I'll stay at Mike's for now. You can call me once you've had time to consider what you truly want. And with that, he was gone. For the first time in our relationship, I wasn't in control. And for the first time, I wasn't sure whether I wanted him to return. Weeks passed after James informed me he wanted a divorce. He spent most nights at Mike's residence, but returned every few days to pick up clothes or look through his belongings. Every time I saw him, he seemed like someone else. He didn't look at me the same way and didn't speak to me warmly. He treated me like a stranger, and that killed me. I'd make small chat when he stopped by, anything to break the ice between us, but he kept it short and polite, as if he were speaking to a coworker he hardly knew. I'd fall apart as soon as he went. I'd sit on the couch and cry, wondering how things could get so horrible so quickly. But as much as I despised the situation, I couldn't bring myself to accept any true responsibility for it. I told myself it was his fault for allowing his pals to poison his mind against me. That was what I needed to think to keep myself from drowning in remorse. When the divorce was finalized, it was as equitable as it could be. Nobody got messed over, and neither of us came away with more than the other. I kept the house, he kept the car, and we shared the savings equally. However, it didn't feel like a win. It seemed like I was losing a piece of myself that I couldn't get back. After the paperwork were signed, James stopped coming around. I'd see updates on his Facebook page every now and then, photographs of him smiling with Mike and the boys, or hiking in areas I had no idea he enjoyed. He appeared happy, free even. And his buddies' reactions made it plain that they were completely on his side. People I believed were our friends ceased contacting me totally. No more party invitations or check-in texts. It was as if I had been cut out of the group entirely. At first, I was furious. How could they all turn against me like that? But deep inside, I understood why. They were not my pals. They were his, and they did not like me. Perhaps they never had. 3 months after the divorce, I was more concerned with James' happiness than with everyone else's silence. Every time I saw him post a photo or an update, I was reminded that he was better off without me. That stung more than anything. I wanted to believe he was just putting on a show, but the smile in his images did not appear artificial. He appeared strong and unusual, like the man I wished he was, but it's too late. I tried to distract myself and go on, but nothing seemed right. Dating apps were a joke. The males I met were either odd broke or looking for something I didn't have. I wasn't sure what I wanted anymore. All I knew was that I did not want to wind up alone, but as the weeks passed, that prospect became more plausible. I kept telling myself the divorce was for the best, that James was not the man I needed. I'd find someone stronger and more decisive, someone who can handle me. But every time his name appeared on my news feed, that tiny voice in the back of my head reminded me that I had made a mistake and that just maybe I had been the problem all along. But I would never say that aloud, not to anyone.